Hi everyone, this is Elena of the Witches Box, and I'm here today with another episode of Witch Booktube. And today we're talking about the second book that we sent out in our April Witch Book subscription bundle. The first one was Water Witchcraft. The second one is The Way of the Water Priestess by Annwyn Avalon. This is Entering the World of Water Magic. This book combo was really, really beautiful. And as of today, last night, we had our live gathering for the Witch Book Coven, and Annwyn Avalon was able to join us, and it was a wonderful conversation, which is one of the, like I've said this before, one of my favorite things about this subscription is that we get to sit down with these authors and have really amazing conversations, not just about the books that they wrote, but just their process in general, their witchery in general. I love it. In any case, last night, this was one of the books that we talked about, The Way of the Water Priestess. Let me read to you her bio and then I'm going to jump into the book. Annwyn Avalon is a witch, priestess, and the founder of Triskel Rose, an Avalonian witchcraft tradition. Annwyn is a regular contributor to Magical Times and Patheos, and you can visit her at waterwitchcraft.com. Let me read to you the table of contents. So chapter 1 is Return to Ancient Wisdom. Chapter 2 is Ancestral Water Priestesses. Chapter 3, Ancient Temple Arts. Chapter 4, Raising the Temple. Chapter 5, The Healing Power of Water. Chapter 6, The Wisdom of Time and Tides. Chapter 7, Water Divination. Chapter 8, The Art of Ritual. Chapter 9, On the Priestess Path. There's a conclusion, and then there's an index of rituals and prayers. This book combination, I think, was fantastic, because what we got in the first book was just a really great deep dive into all the different ways to work with water and the different paths of water working as a witch and water magic. I really loved it. It was incredibly thorough. It went into topics that, as I said in that video, we don't see a lot discussed, that I think we need to have more discussion about as we go. Particularly, there's a whole section there on swamp waters and swamp witches and how that's different from working with other bodies of water. I mean, really beautiful book. I highly recommend it. Go check out that review. There's a link in that review for getting that book. In this book, she goes deeper and in a different direction. That is, I think, an important direction to go in. We don't really talk about like priesthood, priestesshood, and what that really means a lot. There is a lot of baggage that we carry in modern day Western society witchcraft, because many of us come from or are healing from the trauma of coming from super hierarchical and oftentimes power abusing religious organizations. And so when we think of things like a priest or a priestess, there's baggage around, like, you know, just having a hierarchy in general, even though there are countless covens and groups that belong to traditions that have this type of hierarchy. In general conversation, it's still a funky topic. And what I love about this book and why I think it's so important, it's because it's diving into a discussion about true priesthood in terms of the service. It is a path of deep service and deep responsibility in terms of holding space for the greater community, for the greater growth, for the greater process. We need to start really shifting our orientation around these roles, but also demystifying who gets to be in that role. She really touches on that in a really beautiful way, and I think in a really important way to this conversation. It is truly an important conversation to be having, but also in terms of the way each one of us considers our trajectory, our spiritual trajectory on our path as witches. It's important to allow room for, you will probably at some point in your life reach a stage in which you are holding this kind of space. You are doing this level of service. Whether you are aware of it or not, we tend to fall into these roles. But when we allow room for at one point, I am a priestess, that creates a terrain, that it creates a ground and a foundation for the level of responsibility, intentionality, and consciousness that's required for taking up that mantle and taking up that level of responsibility. It is a gorgeous book because on top of that, in very important topic, you get that through the lens of being a priestess of water. Really gorgeous work, just in terms of being a steward of water and steward of water spirits, and what that relationship of honor and respect is, what it is to then ally with this particular element, with this entity. It's a living thing. and then be an ally to it, an advocate for it in the greater world when we're talking about going deeper and deeper into water wars and the pollution and how we're poisoning the very lifeblood of this planet. It gives you an example of what the level of service is, what kind of work it entails, what kind of conscientious path it requires to take up the mantle of this title, of this role in our greater community, all through the lens of water, which is also a very rich and important topic, because she takes the work that she did in the first book and then goes infinitely deeper and broader into that topic with working with water. It is a gorgeous piece of work. I really recommend it. That's why I chose it for the subscription. It is a conversation that I definitely want to see more of. Yes, some people are writing about it, but from a different perspective. I'd like to see books like this written for the lay practitioner that doesn't consider this to be a role for them, but perhaps needs to, not because they're going to become a priest or a priestess or a priestess, but because there needs to be an understanding that at some point we're all going to reach a place in our growth where service comes into play, and what kind of intentionality and what kind of responsibility are we going to cultivate in order to step into that natural maturation role. We will all at some point or another come to a place of that kind of responsibility, whether it's on a very small scale or a really large scale. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really change the value of becoming an elder in your community, of becoming someone who has now amassed a certain amount of knowledge and is being asked to step up and share. So I, for that reason, really, really definitely enjoyed it. I thought it was a really great step in a really needed direction. And then on top of that, just the gorgeous, gorgeous detail that we have now. She's fleshed out over the course of 2 books what it's really like to walk a water witch path and what that can be. Really, really gorgeous. Can't say enough about it. I really enjoyed it. There it is. And yeah, if you've read it, if you were part of that discussion and you have commentaries, please go ahead and put that down below. If you haven't joined our book subscription yet, please do so. There's a link to that down below. It is a great subscription because it's definitely a much more affordable subscription that we have, but also, and more importantly, we learn so much. And then on top of that, we get to hang out with the authors, which is by far just as equally amazing as having the books themselves, because I love books. It's near and dear to my heart because I'm a book girl. So yes, there it is, The Way of the Water Priestess by Annwyn Avalon. Grab it if you didn't get a chance to get it through us. There's a link to it down below, and I will see you again next week. Bye.